Hey everyone, in this video we're going to talk about the different tooth profiles and stitching chisels, the different types of thread, and why you might choose one specific type of thread to pair with a specific stitching chisel. Let's get into it. These are the available options for tools to punch the holes in leather that we're going to need to stitch. These are pricking irons. These two here are similar tools, they just make different shapes in the leather. This is called a stitching punch. The difference between a pricking iron and a stitching punch is that a stitching punch has circular holes. Now these circular holes are going to actually remove leather as we punch our stitch line. Let me give you an example. I'm going to grab my maul and I'm on my punching pad here, and I'm just going to punch a couple of lines of holes. Now you can see we've actually removed leather in every single one of these little holes. For our pricking irons, we have these pricking iron pads. This is going to help your teeth last a little bit longer because they are a little bit sharper, so they will go really deep into our punching pad here and might dull over time. We'll do a line of these right next to the other ones. Now these are the diamonds, and what I'm going to do here are the French shape. And you can see the difference. So you can see that each of these hole shapes are going to affect the way that your thread lays, and that's why we used 3 different tools for the desired shape of the stitching line. Here are a lot of our thread options. We have a bunch of polyester and nylon threads, and then we have one natural option, which is a waxed cotton thread. This one over here is Maine braided wax cord. This is Maine's round wax cord. These are very similar, except one has a round profile and one has more of a flat profile. The flat profiles are going to be nicer on the slanted holes because they'll lay at an angle and you'll get more of that Western look. The Ritza is also a flat profile. It's a lot flatter actually than the Maine braided, so you can have different levels of how flat you want your thread to sit. If you want something more traditional, you're going to look at the Dunmore thread, which is a nylon thread, or the wax linen thread. Now, the wax linen thread, you do have to be careful to bury your stitches because it is a natural thread. So over time, if it gets wet or it gets worn down, it won't stand up as strongly as a synthetic thread will. However, linen thread has been used for hundreds and hundreds of years, and it ages really beautifully with leather. So that's why a lot of people like it, and that's why I like it as well. Now, all of these threads come in different sizes. You're going to want to match your size to your hole shape to get the right profile. Let's go back to our samples and talk about how thickness of leather affects what a stitch line looks like. If we look at our stitching samples, we can see that we have 3 different stitch distances. This is a 5 millimeter, this is a 3.85 millimeter, and 3.38 millimeter spacing. That's the distance between the tines, and it's the same for our diamond shape up here. This is a 0.8 millimeter Ritza thread on every single hole. And I like this because it shows you the difference that stitching distance can make as far as the aesthetics of a stitch line and the thickness of a thread. So the further apart your stitching holes are, the thinner your thread's going to look. Now you can also use this and go in reverse. The thicker your thread is, the closer together your stitching holes are going to look. So if you want a very ornate, French-looking, fancy stitch line, you're going to want to pair close holes with a thin thread. This will also make it look a little bit more machine sewn. If you want more of a crafty, handmade feel, you're going to want to go with a thicker thread and a further apart spaced hole. Now you do have to be careful because sometimes you'll get a thread that is a little too thin with a hole that is a little too far apart, and it'll almost look anemic. We're lucky that in modern day, our synthetic threads are very, very strong. But if you want your stitching to stand out, if you want to say, hey, look at this, I hand sewed this and it looks great, you want to make sure that you pick a thread that is going to pair nicely with the stitching hole distance that you choose.